Five.
Live streaming is on.
And we're live for the 5th Research Roundup with the Common Stack. So this is where we kind of just go over all the work that we've done over the last couple of weeks and the progress that the community has been making towards a future where public goods are valued for the contributions they give us to the world. So there's been a lot going on, and I'm really excited to actually start decentralizing. We are really excited to start decentralizing the Common Stack development. Jeff, do you want to say anything about how we're moving to GitHub?
Yeah, so it's been great. We have been working with a new project manager, Github Fries, who's awesome, total rock star, and helping us break out our milestones and tasks into chunks for each of the iterations that we're building. So as you guys probably know, the Common Stack has a big goal to build the cyber physical commons. So this is kind of like building DAO infrastructure out piece by piece to solve a lot of the attack vectors we see in the early DAO ecosystem today. So we've got, our bonding curve, we've got conviction voting, we have the Giveth proposal engine, we have the commons dashboard, and each of these projects is kind of a project on its own. So breaking out the build process into a series of milestones, which are all hosted on GitHub. So let me just share my screen here briefly, and we can show you the initial milestones laid out in our what we call iteration 0. It's kind of our staging and preparation and getting everything in order to begin building all of these various pieces, or continue building as it would be. So one of the exciting projects that are going on at the moment is the Commons Simulator. Griff has been leading that up and has got some amazing talent from a bunch of designers on the team. And this is basically a way that we can gamify and bring CAD models closer to the end user, rather than having to dig through, Python notebooks and code and data science type stuff. It can really bring the use of a CAD model into the understanding of the end user with story and narrative and graphics and all that. So you can feel free to come here to the Common Stack /iteration 0/milestones and see all of the big projects that we're working on at the moment. Were there any others that you wanted to emphasize in particular, Griff?
It's really, well, yeah, let's check out the Token Engineering Commons. I really am just excited to see our work on GitHub. So now that we can kind of better organize contributors, and people can anyone can create a GitHub issue and actually say, hey, this is something that needs to be done. And then we can standardize how we create those issues, and we can actually start funding people to work on the Common Stack projects that need to get done, and there's lots of random things, and it's that maybe we don't have the time to do as like the core team, but it still needs to get done. Or if something that does need to get done, maybe the core team doesn't have to actually do it because other people are better positioned to do it. And so yeah, you can see we have we're having a lot of fun ticking boxes, managing our progress every month, and really throughout like day by day, saying what we've done. I still need to check some of those boxes from yesterday, it looks like, but yeah, it's really cool. So if you ever want to see where we're at, what we're working on, GitHub is the spot.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and speaking of what's been going on in the Common Stack, man, conviction voting is screaming right now, huh?
Yeah, really exciting stuff going on. So conviction voting, as most of you probably know, is the governance component of the Common Stack. So it's basically replacing ad hoc voting, or like time-based voting, with continuous voting. So for example, actually, with what we were just showing on GitHub, what you could do with conviction voting is have people signal what milestones are important to them, for example. So, at some point in the future, you may see the C-Stack token, or any token really, being used to continuously vote on like the priorities of a community. So that's a pretty exciting development. But what Aragon has done is taken the conviction voting designs that have been worked on by OneHive. Actually, shout out to Luke Duncan and OneHive for all the hard work, and Sem Brestels and their whole team for bringing conviction voting to reality on OneHive. And Aragon has just launched their conviction funding pilot. So let me share my screen again. So Aragon has launched at conviction.aragon.org a grants funding round. So they're giving out up to 9,000 ANT, which is about 70,000 US total at the current ANT price. And they are allowing the community to put up proposals, which are all then voted on using ANT. And when they achieve enough convictions, so you can see this actually just started yesterday. So the top proposals have about 2% of the required conviction. But you can also see this kind of projected conviction bar. So it's looking like these early proposals will have enough conviction to pass. Yeah, and there's some pretty exciting proposals out there for a whole bunch of things. So this is a pretty small grants round. Oh wow, there's one that requested a decent amount, 405% conviction needed. That might be a difficult one, but this is part of the point, is like to experiment with these tools, right, and see you know, where conviction voting differs from typical or traditional voting. And this, you know, if you request, you know, this is a significant portion. So 2,000 over 9,000, that's, you know, 25% of the total fund. So you need more conviction than is available. So we can see kind of the limits of these systems. Actually, this is the beta parameter. Beta would be about 15 or 20% is the maximum percent of funds that you can request. And if you request more than that, it's just literally impossible. With all the tokens for all of the time with supporting that proposal, still can't get enough conviction. So
what's interesting is if they continued the pilot and they added another, let's say, 50,000 ants, then this proposal would be able to actually be passed. So if more money came in to the funding pool, then this proposal could actually get passed. But I don't think that's going to happen in this pilot, right? Like,
yeah, no, I don't think so. As far as I'm aware. Actually, I could dive right into the. We've got the conviction voting algorithm overview right here, and we can see. I mean, the mathematical derivation for the math folks. This is the trigger function logic, and this beta is actually the maximum percentage of total funds that can be requested by a proposal. And this equation looks scary. This is basically modeled after the electron repulsion equation. So we want to make sure it's really difficult for proposals that ask more than beta percent of the total funds to get passed. And we actually, this is Michael Zargham's mathematical genius, of course, modeled it after the electron repulsion equation, because it gets impossible, like exponentially difficult to push two electrons close together. So that's, we're using the same type of equation to make sure it's that difficult to acquire conviction for large proposals. And I mean, that prevents an attack vector as well, right? We don't want someone draining the whole pool in one proposal. Even if everyone supports it, that just leaves the community off in a bad situation. So
yeah, it's just not the best strategy for using funds. And this is the thing about conviction voting. Or conviction funding. It's specifically focused on. It's not about passing laws for people to govern society. It's about spending money from a shared pot of funds, and that's it. And it's really perfectly tuned for that application. And it's amazing to see a massive experiment like this, 70K going out there. So we just need to, I'm excited to put up a proposal and get voting for it. Unfortunately, you know, a lot of people had Aragon's also doing this liquidity mining. So if you have if you had your funds in a balancer pool or a Uniswap pool, then you don't get to vote on this. It's really just for the hodlers, the hardcore hodlers. So
yeah. Yeah. So actually, yeah, if you had your ANT in a wallet, there was a snapshot taken a couple of days ago, and you should now have SANT, and you can use your SANT to vote on proposals in the conviction funding pilot. And actually, if if you have any SANT, there's one proposal, actually, it's looking like it's projected to pass, but this is one that we'll be carrying out with Michael Zargum and Andrew Clark, is to evaluate the funding pilot using cadCAD itself. So basically, we're going to do a retrospective on the experiment using cadCAD and checking, like, how did it work? Where did it fail? We might look at some of those proposals that came in with too much, requesting too many funds, and consider putting some sort of parameters on, when we launch another experiment like this, maybe we say upfront, proposals that request more than 15% of the total pot will not be able to pass. So it's just sort of understanding all of the quirks and the details behind it. So if you have any SANT, consider supporting proposal 7, or take a look around. There's lots of exciting stuff on there. So take a look at all of them if you like.
That looks like a great one, though. This is at least from the Common Stack perspective, this is the whole point. It's not about like launching this for one project. It's about launching these tools and then learning from them so we can improve the tools. And every project after this can be better and better because we're actually capturing learnings. This isn't so. I like that proposal. That's the proposal to vote for, everyone.
Sure.
I haven't gotten my ANT out and put it in. I'm pretty excited to see to play with this.
And speaking of conviction voting, there's been a lot of work. So this is the CAD model that has been worked on between OneHive, Block Science, Aragon, and the Common Stack. And it is now complete, so feel free to come in and dig into this repo. It's on github.com, Block Science Aragon conviction voting. There should be a lot of information here about conviction voting, the basics.
I like digital twin graphics. Wow, look at all these nice graphics.
Yeah, totally. So, giving a bit of the high level background, some of the considerations when you're implementing conviction voting, it really depends on the context. So this model is mimicking the OneHive community use case, which is similar to a lot of DAO implementations. It talks about a couple of the different flavors of conviction voting. So we've got like the, once it hits a certain proposal, the proposal passes, which we see with the current Aragon conviction funding pilot. There's also kind of a different version of conviction voting, like dynamic average consensus. So this one doesn't actually pass. It would just determine some continuously set parameter within the community. So maybe a tax rate or a budget allocation for a certain department or something like that. You could have it ranging between, a certain number of percent based on the token weighted preference of community members. And of course, we go much deeper into the conviction voting algorithm, the mathematical derivation, talking about, how we set up this system in the back end of cadCAD, looking at the mathematical first principles. So what parts of these systems are invariant? How do we ensure that, when we use these systems at scale, or when we use these systems with multiple different components piled on top, for example, conviction voting plus quadratic voting plus an augmented bonding curve, we have to be sure that these modules have stability, and the stability is derived by these mathematical invariants. And you can see there's also a run through in English of what these things mean, because not everybody sees and reads the world in math. So some pretty interesting stuff looking at the graph networks, all the notation and definitions. So this is basically like a textbook on conviction voting, and it talks about a lot of the things you need to consider as a community launching conviction voting, some of the attack vectors you need to be aware of. So there's a ton of information in this notebook, and you can come check it out, read more about the parameters, read more about the trigger function, see how these things are derived, some of the sample plots and experiments that were run to make sure that, when we set these systems up, they're not going to have non-intuitive failure modes that we're not expecting. So definitely a lot to check out in this notebook. And we're really excited to share that and get some feedback from the community when people start digging in.
Yeah, it's incredible, man. I'm very, very impressed with that notebook, that README. There's so much detail in there.
Yeah,
That's gonna be really useful when we get into designing our own conviction voting for token engineering commons. But
totally.
but yeah, well, and I guess this is the cadCAD magic that is the community is blowing up these days, huh?
Yeah, totally. We actually just had our second cadCAD community call. cadCAD is now global, by the way. We had our first call for a North American Europe time zone. Second call was Europe and Southeast Asia. So we had Barnaby Minot presenting from the Ethereum Robust Incentives Group, and he did a cadCAD model actually pretty much on his own. I don't think he's been in touch with Michael Zargam and the block science team, of course, but yeah, he definitely has some really great experience putting together cadCAD models, and he just presented that about 8-9 hours ago with James Zaki hosting the call. So cadCAD now has, a following around the world, and the community is really taking off and running with it. So great to see. And that's CADD Call will be hosted on the cadCAD YouTube, which will include a link down below if you want to check it out. Probably some really interesting cadCAD modeling around Ethereum 2.0. So pretty cool to check that out for sure.
I mean, what's amazing is, you and Z started, and a few other people started pushing the cadCAD community, and no one was there. None of those guys were there at the call last night, right?
Yeah, I think most of the block science team is all on, between Pacific time and Eastern time. So that call was pretty late for the whole cadCAD core or block science core team, who traditionally have the most experience with cadCAD. So it's really exciting to see, more of the community in Asia, Australia, and Europe. I guess it was early Europe time. To come together and really start growing this community outside of its block science roots. So pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing work. Another thing that's happening in the background here is the Giveth DAF. So on the legal side, we're really experimenting with different solutions for nonprofits and making nonprofit DAOs. And I talked a lot about it last week, or last research roundup too. So I won't belabor all the details. If you really want to understand, there's a link to the notes that we're taking to kind of organize our thoughts. But we're doing a pilot for Giveth, and we're going to use Giveth as kind of a guinea pig to create a 501c3 DAF. And yeah, a DAF is a donor advised fund where money can come in and then be allocated as donors prefer. And so what's really cool about this structure is it really matches the like DAO idea, where if you start a Swiss foundation, for instance, donors are not allowed to have input on where the funds go. They donate, and then there's actually a limitation. No, you cannot say where this money goes because blah blah blah. There might be some restriction. You could be money laundering, or you could be funneling funds in the wrong direction, and so there's a lot of limitations there. But there are organizations and structures that do allow this, and these are called donor advised funds, and it's very underutilized in general in the nonprofit space. It's usually for personal charities or universities, but there's this group, SDG Impact Fund, that is using it for blockchain purposes, and they've actually been working with Pivx, which is a Dash fork, a fork of Dash, that they've been working with them for almost, I think, over 5 years. And this organization has been around for 12 years. So it's really an honor to work with them and to start piloting some projects for how do we make it so that a DAO can be a 501c3. And the end goal here will be to do what Open Law has done, where you can just go to a website and deploy a DAO, and all of a sudden it's a Delaware Corp. We're thinking the exact same thing, except you go to Giveth and you create a campaign, and it's a 501c3 DAO. It's going to take some time. We're not moving as fast as we'd like. The legal world is a little bit slower than a lot of the innovation that can happen in the crypto space, but we're going to do a pilot with Giveth itself, and then we'll try it with the Commons stack and all of our friends, and we'll start. And then once we have all that data, we'll start automating in and push it forward. So I'm super excited about this. This is something I've been dreaming about ever since the DAO and starting like these nonprofit DAOs, and it's finally happening. So major shout out to Jess and Danny and Brian. Jess from the Common Stack, Danny from Giveth, and Brian from SDD Impact Fund, who are really pushing this forward, as well as a lot of other people, Frederick, Willie. It's definitely a team effort, and I'm pretty excited to see how it goes.
Yeah, that's cool to consider, legal interfaces with existing real world, nonprofit and financial systems, because that's really one of the biggest issues is the last mile. When people wanted to fund these initiatives, we're working on such great things, but to give us fiat money is quite difficult. Actually, it's easier to receive crypto. So to have this DAF serve as like the interface to the real world, so that people who are interested in this kind of technology can fund its development. So
yeah,
really exciting stuff.
And that's actually the big thing, is that because the goal of Giveth is to allow like the crypto world and the crypto philanthropy, like the ability to create new funding for public goods and have that actually hit real people who are doing good work on this earth. The goal of Giveth is to take these crypto funding streams and combine them with the already existing donation streams and make sure that the same people can be receiving both. And with this DAF structure, you can have a nonprofit. The nonprofit can have a Coinbase account. The nonprofit can have a PayPal account, a Venmo account, and it can actually start taking money from the fiat world and turning it into crypto itself, like a normal human does, and then put it somewhere. Or they can take crypto and put it into fiat, and they can, as a nonprofit entity, you can do all that stuff. I mean, trying to deal with the existing infrastructure, converting fiat to crypto and crypto to fiat is so hard, So this should make things a lot easier, and hopefully we can automate most of the process.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. And I guess we're coming up towards the end of our research roundup here, but I think there was one you wanted to chat about, the token engineering commons, some of the latest and greatest decisions and processes. So we're currently in the cultural build process of the token engineering commons. So one of the things that the common stack is, we recognize, the people and the processes that exist in a DAO are just as important as the technology and the mechanisms, which is, where it seems a lot of the space focuses on the tech and not so much on the cultural build. So where we've started with the token engineering commons is really fleshing out that cultural process. So maybe Griff, you want to walk through a little bit what's been going on lately in the token engineering community?
Yeah. I mean, things are really finally coming together. It's been great that we have this. We have a little roadmap, and this is always the plan, right? And reality usually is different. But we actually have been making a lot of progress and succeeding at the roadmap. So we have our initial vision, mission, and values set up, and we have the the vision doc is put together. So if anyone wants to check out our mission and vision, and we're going to go back in October and review everything. So my buddy is like talking crypto over here. And so, but what we figured out was that we actually didn't really define a clear decision-making process. And so we while we're doing this cultural build, we're taking notes for future commons that, like, we need to have in the next roadmap that we make, we'll have making decision process actually come up right here in advance of actually deciding on the vision. Because how do you decide on anything if you haven't decided on your decision-making process? So that's what we kind of injected right here with the incentive design and recruitment. So we're coming up with an approach of how do we reward the people who are doing all this startup work for creating a really really fun and working culture before the money starts coming in. And so we have a cultural tribute plan. And this, if you want to see about how we're going to actually acknowledge and reward contributors to this project, there's a proposal being voted on right now in the TE Commons Discord. So go check it out. Livia put up the proposals. We're voting on the incentive design, the internal comms and external comms plan, as well as the decision-making process. And then next week we're going to focus, assuming those things pass. If they don't pass, then we're going to have to do those again, as well as we're going to start working on roles and defining community stewards process. Like, how do we really, what do we need as a team? Who needs, and not only who's going to do it, but more about like, what are we going to do? Like, what roles do we need to fill? And then we'll actually fill them. So that's the roadmap. We have a ways to go, but we're on pace to launch the Token Engineering Commons in December if all things go well. But we'll see. Of course, we'll see. It's really exciting to be working with the token engineering community. It's been really fun so far and really easy. Everyone's really excited about pushing this forward, and the meetings have been going well. So I feel like we're really on pace.
And I think Livia's done such a fantastic job. She's such a rock star from Genesis DAO, and she's been working in this space for such a long time. And I don't think we give enough credit to like the difficulty of collaborative decision making and collaborative action. And Livia's really pulled together such a great process with these Miro boards where we can all put ideas down together. Your vote knowledge of different voting types, using dot voting and the spreadsheets and the way that we like aggregate these votes. Like, it just seems like the perfect storm of people who have been doing this for a long time, have seen how these kinds of like, it's very easy to jump into this naively and say, oh, this tech is just going to solve all our problems. But having these superstars who have been involved in so many different projects, see how they fall apart, and being able to like start from the beginning fresh, addressing all of these critical concerns. Like, what is this group aiming to do? What is our goal? What is what is the purpose of this community for which we're creating a purpose-driven token? Yeah, it's really exciting to see. And I mean, for what better initiative than the token engineering movement? Like, this is basically funding the rigorous engineering and science that is going to build these components so that they're truly interoperable and modular and able to be deployed for all of the projects that need them, because everyone is kind of circling around these same issues, and we having standardization and interoperability will be key for everything in the space.
And education, and I mean, what's really cool is that it'll be a very open approach, just like what is going on with Aragon right now and conviction funding. We're going to do the same thing, but we'll attach, instead of using ANT token from an ICO, we'll actually allow token engineers and everyone to we'll allow people to create we're actually going to create a bonding curve and do the common stack approach, right? The Curry model, where people put money into a bonding curve, and then they get tokens that allow them to distribute the funds that from the hash tribute, and actually start funding token engineering commons, or token engineering education, token engineering tooling, standardization, and all of the things that have trouble getting funding because they don't have a clear profit motive, but they add a lot of value to the community. And if we can find a way to make this an impact co-investment, where people are collaborating, and everyone who needs these tools can actually even profit, how crazy would that be, from the value that they create, that these tools create. So very excited about it. And the initiative with the Token Engineering Commons, the focus is not on the tools. it's on the cultural build and the effort to launch it. So every week, Livia and I, and yeah, Livia is doing an incredible job at really holding it down and keeping the focus. While you and I, we're always all over the place and all these conviction voting, all those things. Livia's like token engineering commons, and with her experience from Genesis DAO and all her connections, getting feedback from Grace and from the DGov crew, has been really impactful. And every week we kind of go through and say, like, how did we do this week? What if we could go back in time and do it again? What would we do different? And we've started. We have a very extensive note list of things that we would have done different, and that we will do different for the next one, right? And so I'm just excited about seeing this progress and iterate until we really have it on lockdown about exactly how to here's the checklist that any community needs to go through to launch one of these. And it's always going to be unique for every community and their system, but a lot of the bullet points will be the same, right? Everyone's going to need a decision-making process.
Yeah, and all of these Ostrom principles, because essentially we're communities we're trying to turn communities into commons. So we're giving them a resource pool and a set of protocols to make decisions over that resource pool, and the cultural interconnectedness to be able to manage that. So it all comes back to Eleanor Ostrom and her fantastic rules for the commons, and it's really, really exciting progress being made all across the board.
Yeah, it's really exciting to see the common stack breathing life into projects. So and maybe one last shout out, because I actually have to jump over to this call, but this academic paper that we're putting together on the on Ostrom's challenges. So she has her principles, the 8 principles for commons stewardship. She also has 6 challenges for scaling the global commons. And I'm going to go meet with a bunch of the authors from Commons Engine, which is a holochain project, the Common Stack, Economic Space Agency, and the P2P Foundation. So I'm going to go meet with them. We're just in the review phase of this paper, and we're really excited to share an early preprint draft. We'll drop it in the Common Stack channel as soon as that's available. Yeah, and I guess you mentioned Commons Engine. We did do a CCA call last week, and actually Fernanda from the Commons Engine was there along with Dan Finley. Right. So I should put a link down there. It was a really great call. Talk about different kinds of different types of currencies and how there's so many more options than we think of for money. Even the way that we do university certifications we can use that pattern for currency, which is wild. Anyway, but we should roll. You got to get to your next call, and we got to keep this short. So
yeah, cool. Well, thanks. That was a lot of fun, and we'll see you in the next research roundup in 2 weeks.
Yep. Thanks, Jeff. See you, buddy.
See you, everybody.